Secretary of the Army, the Honorable John M. McHugh. Please stand for the arrival of the official party. Remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by Ms. Ashley and Megan Fox. Please be seated. Thank you all for being here this evening. We have a number of distinguished guests who have joined us this evening, and I'd like to recognize some of them. Secretary of Transportation Ray LaHood, Secretary of Veterans Affairs Eric Shinseki, former Secretary of Veterans Affairs James Nicholson, former Secretary of Affairs James Peake, and former Secretary of Affairs Tony Principi. We've also honored this evening to have a number of the chiefs of the reserve components, Chief of the National Guard Bureau, General Craig McKinley, Chief of the Navy Reserve and Commander of the Navy Reserve, Vice Admiral Bert Devick, Commander Mark Flores, and my boss, Lieutenant General John Kelly, Chief of the Air Force Reserve, Lieutenant General Charles Center, Chief of the Army Reserve, Lieutenant General Jack Stoltz, Army National Guard Director, Major General Raymond Carpenter, and the Adjutant General of the Indiana National Guard, General Martin Umbarger. Thank you for being here this evening. At this time, I'd like to introduce General Corner.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is really an honor and a pleasure for me personally and finally to be able to recognize John Boyer's many accomplishments and contributions at this ceremony. I met John as Dental Commander at Landstuhl in Germany when 2003, when the Iraq War started. And first of all, he and his family were great neighbors. I believe, in fact, they litter puppies more than they're cool. There was, in Germany, it was there that he demonstrated when I first saw, he was joint-minded and efficiency-minded. When he was the first person to realize that they could share call for the dental services between Landstuhl and Ramstein, they're only kilometers apart. So I thought he was a great person then and a great commander and leader. When we reconnected later, when I came to Washington, he was already him come, USARC, all the G staff, and the IT community in a program that has now, since that initial planning, has now touched the lives of over 800,000 soldiers. So he's done a lot of things in our Army, and he's been to a lot of schools. And, but I think that his most important contribution is really outside of the publications and outside of the positions. It's really his commitment to the 7 basic Army values. Those are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I found John to be a man of absolutely towering integrity. He always put the needs of the organization first. When I say the organization, it was the Army and the nation. It wasn't the dental corps, it wasn't the medical department, it was the warfighting Army. And he was, and I am sure he still is, a ferocious guy in pursuit of what he thinks is right. That did not prevent him from maintaining balance in his life, which I think is equally important when I'm looking at Christy now. I saw it when he supported his kids by participating in sports and schools. I saw it when he went on the cabin soup diet with Christy after the holidays. And I just want to say that I was privileged to know John when he was a soldier, and I am proud to always call him a friend. And without further ado, come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated during the presentations of the Legion of Merit. The Legion of Merit is presented to Colonel John J. Buyer for exceptional meritorious service, conduct, and performance of outstanding service throughout a 29-year military career. Colonel Buyer has been the epitome of a soldier, clinician, and leader throughout his distinguished years of reserve and active service, culminating as a Deputy Assistant Surgeon General. Throughout his career, he continuously set the highest possible standards. His numerous and diverse assignments included both active and reserve component assignments, hospital clinical leadership positions, dean of 2 advanced general dentistry residencies, residency mentor, 3 command selections, and 3 senior level staff positions at TRADOC, ARCENT, and AMED. Colonel Buyer's exemplary performance of duty, pioneering initiatives, and valued achievements during his years of selfless service reflect a great deal of credit upon himself, the United States Army Medical Department, and the United States Army. Signed, George W. Casey, Jr., General, United States Army, Chief of Staff. A certificate from the Commander-in-Chief is presented to Colonel John Buyer. The certificate reads, I extend to you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of the military service. Your commitment and dedication have been an inspiration for all those who will follow in your footsteps. And for all Americans who join me today in saluting you for a job extremely well done, my best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future. Signed, Barack Obama, Commander-in-Chief. A certificate of retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America. The certificate reads, to all who shall see these presents, reading. This is to certify that Colonel John Buyer, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Army on the first day of January 2009. Signed, George W. Casey, Jr., General, United States Army, Chief of Staff. The flag of the United States will now be presented to Colonel John Buyer on the occasion of his retirement from active duty. handed to Mrs. Christy Buyer. The certificate reads, "To all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that Ms. Christy Buyer, on the occasion of the retirement of her husband from the active status of the United States Army, has earned a grateful appreciation for her own unselfish, faithful, and devoted service. Her unfailing support and understanding helped make possible her husband's lasting contribution to the nation." Signed, George W. Casey, General, United States Army, Chief of Staff.
And now I would like to give the most recently retired colonel in the Army an opportunity to say something.
It's a privilege when I look around the room to see so many wonderful people, General Peach, General Shinseki, too many names to even mention. Congressman he's absolutely just a wonderful person, and all the other people here that haven't had a chance, and Art, everybody else that Stan, Paul, see so many faces and names that I just can't mention them all. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to recognize my wife. Without her, nothing is possible. Everybody that knows it takes a team effort to raise families, it takes a team effort to build a career, it takes a team effort to just for the daily living. When I'm gone from home and deployed, she's there taking care of the kids. When I'm at work late at night, she's there taking care of the kids. When I come home late at night, she never complained, she took care of me. And for that, I'm grateful and appreciate that. My father, the great man that he is. And without them, I wouldn't be here today. So for my mother, I have some flowers for you too as well. This is not a quiz, but I'm going to give you a name. If anybody recognizes this name, please be silent. Because it's a lead-in for a greater good that's happening all over America in all souls, sailors, Marines, and airmen, and Coast Guardmen. The man's name is Elijah Huffman. I'll tell you who Elijah is in a little bit. But Elijah had a strategic idea. His thought was bigger than himself. He gave himself for an organization and a concept. Though he was one man, he made a huge difference. Who was Elijah? Elijah Huffman was a gentleman who had a small church outside of Detroit, Michigan. And through his congregation, he never left that church, even though he had opportunities. But he left the church in profound ways, because many of you have sung his songs. Probably his words have touched your heart, because he wrote more than 1,000 hymns in his short career. That is an example of selfless service. And what I saw throughout my career was selfless service like that going on every day, from the privates to the generals. They did what was necessary to be able to accomplish what was given them on that day without the expectation of neon signs, parades, or even the mere recognition or thank you. It was a job that we did every day. Thankless service truly is the epitome of the entire service. It's what we did, it's what we do. And when we retire and we go home, when we look in our rearview mirror, we don't say to ourselves, I wish I were back. I can't tell you I could say that. can't tell you that they're going to say, I regret some things that I've done, because they probably have. But the common thing that holds, and that bond that holds us all together, is that each and every one of us, singly and in a group, made a powerful difference to advance the concepts of a nation that was bigger than ourselves. So each soldier, there's an Elijah Hubbard. In each airman, each Marine, each Coast Guard, there's an Elijah Hubbard. I was proud to serve. If called again, I would do it again in a heartbeat. When I'm called to serve in a different way, I would practice up in Blacksburg, Virginia. When I entered there, I was hoping to go into a private practice 4 days a week and relax. Within 3 months, my practice has tripled, my staff has doubled, and I had to buy another building. I don't know if it's my nature or the needs of the population. Some would say both. I'm too busy, really, to look back and say, I had another life, but I did have another life, and it was a wonderful life. Thank you.
Well, it's now my pleasure to introduce the Secretary of the Army, the Honorable John Q.
John, very credible, and to you and Christy, thank you for your literally decades of service, for the difference you've made for our men and women in uniform, and for the very gracious comments you made here this evening. As General Corder was talking, and others, I just jotted some notes as to how they described you: towering integrity, highest possible standards, high values, and initiatives. And having heard that, the only thing I can ask you from the bottom of my heart, are you sure you and Steve are related? Monty Python used to say, now for something a little different.
I speak after you.
Got their hands. It's all right, Steve. They can't help me no more. This is a military retirement. So I want you to understand anything you may hear in the following minutes that has a remote relationship to reality is purely coincidental. And I think my old congressional days coming back to me, I want the record to show I'm not under oath. So, but in all seriousness, when I walked in here tonight, saw the crowd and the dignitaries that have been mentioned, presidential cabinet secretaries, both past and present, that you have enough 2 and 3 stars in here to kind of recreate the Milky Way. You probably have a quorum of congressional members, Steve's colleagues. It just convinces me that you felt as I did when I heard Steve Buyer was retiring. Well, that's too good to be true. And you kind of had to show up just to make sure it is. So, the lesson here, Steve, is give the people what they want. I think there's an important question before us here tonight. Who is the real Stephen Earl Buyer? The man, the myth, the legend. Is he that individual described on his congressional website that says, just someone trying to serve Hoosiers, raised on the banks of the Tippecanoe, trying to make a difference? Or is he the member of Congress who recently received a Defenders of Wildlife Action Fund scorecard of 0? Now, I know that sounds low in most people's lives. Steve has always set new standards. And if you want to affirm that, you can go to the congressional scorecard of the infamous Progressive Patriots, who this year gave Steve a net congressional score of, listen carefully, minus 49. And I ain't making it up. That sounds more like his golf score on the back nine than it does congressional score. But I think in fairness, we should let Steve describe himself. And I would refer you to the website of the American Legion, where you can click on and draw up the video of a speech Steve gave to the National Convention this month, where he described himself, and I quote, "That snot-nosed little brat that wanders into the alleyways," end quote. I've known Steve for 17 years. Actually, more than that. He and I live in the same building. It's just 2 floors right up above him. We have been dearest friends. And when he describes himself as a snot-nosed little brat that wanders in alleyways, the only thing I can say is, sounds right to me. So Steve is all of those things, but he's a lot more. And in those nearly 20 years that he and I have been friends, I know he is especially a family man. And Joni's here tonight. And we didn't get to see Joni all that much, but we got to hear about you a whole lot, Joni. I know the deep love he has for you, and the passion he feels toward you, and the family. And I don't need to express his gratitude, but I know in quiet nights when we sat around together, you frequently talked about the kind of backing and love that you gave him. And it's great to see you here tonight. His son, Ryan. Ryan, we have all of your track record times embedded in our mind. Heard about you and saw his excitement when you were going to be his summer roommate. I don't know how you felt about that. Your dad was excited. And of course, the apple of his eye, his daughter Colleen, who is not able to be with us tonight. And as you heard, Steve's brother John explained, mom and dad. Gina's mom, his father John, and as you now know, apparently runs in the family, Colonel retired John Buyer, of course, Christy. Steve's sisters, Karen and Diane, and his brother-in-law Tim, and he's got a couple of grandchildren floating around in there somewhere as well. That has been the prime motivator of Steve Buyer that I've known as closely as I have. And this really should be a celebration of 2 pretty remarkable lives in service to our nation, Steve and John. And I have no doubt, knowing Steve and having met John and talked to him on occasion, that lifetime commitment to service began with his family and perhaps most particularly with his father, Dr. John Buyer. Now, when you're a doctor, you can probably have a commission and go in as an officer, but Steve's dad chose to serve as a sergeant, a non-commissioned officer, really the heart and soul of the Army at the Walter Reed Burning Unit in the Korean War. And I think that's what set these 2 fine Americans on their path of service. And they both have led impressive careers marked with merit, with sacrifice, and a total motivation to try to make tomorrow better than today, as they tried to make today better than yesterday. Now, Steve, he started that career and kind of got his academic fides when he went to the Citadel. He became a distinguished military graduate. Now, that immediately set him apart from his peers, and his friends who are in this audience will know, because he, one of the few times in his life, chose to pay for that education. He doesn't always do that when we're out. That's some history there. But he chose to pay because he could have gone probably a few hundred miles north of here to a quaint little military academy overlooking the Hudson and got the same brutal treatment for free. military career in the Medical Service Corps as an officer in the 337th General Hospital. Now, after a time, his superiors, contemplating the thought of Steve Buyer running around the hospital with sharp instruments in his hands, began to think maybe he should rebranch. And then Steve graduated from Valparaiso Law School. And I know what you're thinking, because it occurred to me, is that really school? I looked it up. This is 17 years of payback. I looked it up, and everything I told you so far, most everything I told you so far is fact. Now, Valparaiso is not only a law school, I know this because they got a website. And there's also a blog that discusses law schools. It's called toplawschools.com. I know Rick Mays was here for Army Times. You can Google that, Rick, and go to it. And I swear I went to this chat room, and here's a comment about Valparaiso Law School from someone who was participating in the chat room. And that person noted, I have a former roommate, parenthesis, that I hated, close parenthesis, that went to Valparaiso. I can't speak about the quality of the school. As for my roommate, he wasn't the best student in college, and to be honest, I thought he was a moron. He did his undergraduate at Texas Tech and applied to Tech for his graduate studies. He got a 149 on his LSAT. Folks, I got to tell you, I took the LSATs, I dropped out of law school after 10 days, but you can take a broken pen and take the answer sheet for the LSAT, kind of shake it at that, you're going to get he got a 149 on his LSAT, not his alma mater, not even his alma mater, Texas Tech. Would take him, parenthesis, not even waitlist, close parenthesis. The only schools he was given the opportunity to attend was Valparaiso and Cooley. I've never heard of Cooley. He went with Valparaiso. After he graduated, he was unable to find work in law anywhere in the country, and last I heard, he was back in the Texas Panhandle teaching band. So, after Steve graduated from Valparaiso, the Army, as only the Army can, did the smart thing, and eventually we called him up to active duty, gave him a weapon, and sent him to war. And that's where, seriously, his life really took on distinction. He led a soldier's life. He went off to war in a period of uncertainty and left his family behind. In late 1990, as he was mobilized in 3 days, he packed up his office, his law practice, and deployed to theater for 5 months in support of the first Iraqi war, Operation Desert Storm. And for those of you who pay attention to these things, you know how he excelled in that assignment and brought his experiences home to help others. And I watched it, and I admired him to be all get out. He left behind his wife and his 2 young children, who were then ages 8 and 5, to deploy to, as our soldiers do, uncertain fate and uncertain tomorrow. And he served in a very critical position in operational law. He advised our commanders on the conduct toward detainees, refugees, and POWs. And he provided critical information for our Army at war. And just kind of to fill in the downtime, he also acted as the Armed Forces liaison to the International Red Cross. And for his outstanding service, Steve, very rightfully, was awarded the Bronze Star for all that he did for that effort. And like many reserve soldiers at the time, his service came at a heavy price. His law practice closed and out of business. Steve returned home, but in that era, little help to support him and his family and help pick up the pieces of what, because of his service, became a very changed and very challenged life. And I know this because we've talked about it. It was a lesson that he would always remember. So there we had it. We had a trained killer became a member of the Selected Reserve, and he eventually joined Congress's very own 157th Individual Mobilization Augmentee Detachment, or as we in the Pentagon call them, the Wheezing 157th. Listen, when the call comes up, they answer. If you call really loud, because they're hearing us. He continued to serve, and the remarkable, I mean this seriously, the remarkable thing was Steve took that unit and really cored into its talents, and he offered a rich variety of officer development training. He worked behind the scenes, and he really did become the backbone of the unit's officer development program. And through Steve's efforts, the 157th became not just a unit designation, it became an actual unit, and probably even a fighting one at that. But because of Steve's service in the Army Reserve, he knows this, the hardships, the experiences, the needs that special veterans endure. And this has resulted in indefatigable well of effort on behalf of service members and veterans during his entire tenure in Congress. Steve and I started out in the Armed Services Committee together. He did me the biggest favor of my political career when he left the Armed Services Committee, because he was in front of me, and because he left, I actually eventually became the ranking member. But he also did another big favor for me. He showed me what it meant to care. He showed me how one could take passion and turn it into product. And when he left the Armed Services Committee, he ultimately continued to focus on his time on the Veterans Affairs Committee. He became chairman, of course, and serves as the ranking member. And there isn't a reserve officer enlisted. There isn't a member of the active military branches of all of our armed services who haven't greatly benefited from the initiative, the concern, the caring of Steve Buyer. From TRICARE to Life to program after program. And this town's seen a lot of great people that made a lot of difference. And you can walk through committee rooms and see paintings on the walls of folks who devoted their initiative and their effort to try to make that difference for people. And that long line of those who sacrifice and contribute, Steve Buyer need not take a back seat. Above it all, to Steve Buyer we say thank you and goodbye from the Army tonight has been my best friend for the better part of 20 years. And I'm not sure who's going to miss him most. I'm not trying to sound like we're having a funeral. But I will miss you, Steve. We probably won't see as much of each other as we once did. And I know that the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and those men and women and their families that have for so long looked to you for sacrifice, for making a difference, along with this nation, have been an issue as well. So God bless you for all that you've
The Legion of Merit is presented to Colonel Stephen E. Buyer for exceptional meritorious service in positions of increasing responsibility, culminating in a 30-year career as trial counsel to the Chief Army Reserve. Throughout his career, Colonel Buyer demonstrated exceptional leadership, unparalleled professionalism, vast technical knowledge, and superb managerial skills. His unwavering dedication, legal expertise, and selfless service contributed to the overall readiness of every unit in which he served. Upon retirement, Colonel Buyer was recognized for distinguished performance and duty that represents exemplary achievement in the finest traditions of the United States Army. Signed, George W. Casey, Jr., General, United States Army, Chief of Staff.
Good luck with this. That's what you get for the lowest bidder. Yeah, there it is.
A certificate from the Commander-in-Chief is presented to Colonel Stephen Buyer. The certificate reads, I extend to you my personal thanks and sincere appreciation of a grateful nation for your contribution and honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history, with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. Your commitment and dedication have been an inspiration for all those who will follow in your footsteps. And for all Americans who join me today in saluting you for a job extremely well done. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future. Signed, Barack Obama, Commander-in-Chief. A certificate of retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America. The certificate reads, to all who shall see these presents greeted, this is to certify that Colonel Stephen E. Buyer, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Army on the first day of August, 2010. Signed, George W. Casey, Jr., General, United States Army, Chief of Staff. States will now be presented to Colonel Stephen Buyer on the occasion of his retirement from the Army Reserve. Certificate of Appreciation presented to Mrs. Joni Buyer. The certificate reads, to all who shall see these presents greeted, this is to certify that Joni Buyer, on the occasion of the retirement of her husband from the active reserve status of the United States Army, has earned the grateful appreciation for her own unselfish, faithful, and devoted service. Her unfailing support and understanding helped to make possible her husband's lasting contribution to the nation. Signed, George W. Casey, Jr., General, United States Army, Chief of Staff.
To you, my dearest friend, and
John Eugene Buyer. Whereas Colonel Buyer graduated as a distinguished military graduate from the Citadel in 1980 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. Whereas Colonel Buyer was commissioned a second lieutenant in the Army Reserve as a Medical Service Corps officer and is a graduate of the Medical Service Corps Officers Basic Course. Whereas Colonel Buyer graduated from Valparaiso Law School, Valparaiso, Indiana in 1984 with a Juris Doctorate degree and has been admitted to the Bar of Indiana and Virginia. Whereas following Colonel Buyer's graduation from law school, he branch transferred to the Judge Advocate General Corps and was called to active duty in 1984 for a period of 3 years. Whereas Colonel Buyer is a graduate of the Officer Basic Course, the Judge Advocate Officer Basic Course, the Judge Advocate Claims Course, the Judge Advocate Officer Advanced Course, and the Command and General Staff College. Whereas Colonel Buyer, as a Staff Judge Advocate Officer at Fort Eustis, Virginia, he also served as Special Assistant United States Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. Whereas Colonel Buyer served with the 310th TACOM as one of the United States Army's liaisons to the National Territorial Command during exercise Reforger in the Netherlands and Belgium, as well as participating in 3 Reforger exercises in Germany with the 21st TACOM. Whereas in the fall of 1990, Colonel Buyer was called to active duty on 3 days' notice to participate in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, serving as an operational law judge advocate providing legal advice to forward deployed combat service support units within the combat zone of operations. Whereas in addition to other duties, during his deployment in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Colonel Buyer provided legal advice to the commander of the 22nd Support Command and was assigned to the Western Enemy Prisoner of War Camp, providing legal advice on international law and the Geneva Conventions regarding the treatment of prisoners of war, detained civilians, and refugees. Whereas for his actions in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Colonel Buyer was awarded one of the Army's most sacred medals, the Bronze Star Medal. Whereas Colonel Buyer was elected to serve his first term in the as a U.S. representative from Indiana in 1992 in the 103rd Congress and has continued to dutifully dedicate his service as a statesman in the 104th, 105th, 106th, 107th, 108th, 109th, 110th, and presently in the 111th Congresses. Whereas over a multifaceted career of distinguished public service dedicated to the preservation of the principles upon which our nation was founded, from his cadet days at the Citadel to the halls of Congress, in his every step, Colonel Buyer has embodied an epitome of excellence in statesmanship, selfless service to country, and dedicated service to his fellow Americans. Whereas Colonel Buyer's commitment to public service commands the nation's highest respect and gratitude. Whereas Colonel Buyer embodies all 7 Army Corps values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And whereas Colonel Buyer has had a tremendous positive impact on the United States Army Reserve, the United States Army, and the United States as a whole. Now therefore be it resolved that the House of Representatives, 1, honors Colonel Stephen E. Buyer for his service of 30 years on the occasion of his retirement from the Army Reserve on September 16, 2010. 2, commends Colonel Buyer for his dedication and commitment to excellence as a U.S. Army Reserve Judge Advocate Officer and leader. And 3rd, recognizes the tremendous dedication and fortitude with which Colonel Buyer has led an exemplary career in public service, 3 times a citizen, having balanced his time in the Army Reserve and the demanding duties of his roles as husband, father, community leader, citizen soldier, and congressman with consummate professionalism and boundless devotion to each. And 4, recognizes Colonel Buyer as a soldier, leader, and statesman for displaying the highest level
Chiefs who are here tonight. It's a great pleasure to be with you tonight. Congressman Buyer, I get to represent 460,000 men and women who call themselves National Guardsmen. You, along with Gene Taylor, have co-chaired the Guard and Reserve Caucus in the House. We have a small statue that is symbolic of all men and women who serve as citizen soldiers and airmen. And we couldn't think of a finer person to award this statue to tonight than you for your selfless service. I think being a citizen makes you a better reservist, and being a reservist makes you a better citizen. So Marty, I'm going to have you present this and say a few words to your congressman. Thanks. Great season. Thank you.
You know what I think of you, sir.
He doesn't mind.
I learned a lot.
Take that away.
No, you are my congressman. And no one has served us better than you have. And I just want to thank you for a great career. More importantly, for your friendship.
Thank you, General McKinley, General Barker. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Jack Stoltz, Chief of the Army Reserve.
Well, to everyone that's here, thanks for being here. You know, one of the challenges I've had this year in the Army Reserve is I'm authorized 205,000, but I've had about 207,000 soldiers. So the Sec Army has been trying to get me to get back within what I'm able to afford. So tonight, we're one less. But no, it truly is an honor to be here, and it does hurt to say farewell to a fellow, comrade in arms, and Colonel Steve Buyer. But he has done, as Craig said, so much for the reserve components. As we've been over to the hill here to see him, he always would say, "What do you need? What can I do for you? What can I do for your soldiers? What can I do for your family?" The other thing I admired about him is his stewardship. He would say, "I'm going to hold you accountable." Because he said, "I'm a steward of this nation's tax dollars." So truly that epitome of a citizen soldier, looking out for the soldiers of our country and looking out for their families, but also looking out for our citizens. So on behalf of those 206,999